The US and Iran reached a deal. President Trump hosted a UFC brawl at the White House, and Post readers shared their best dad jokes. That's some of what we'll get to on The 7 from The Washington Post. I'm Izin Akabawal, in for Hannah Jewell. It's Monday, June 15th. Let's get you caught up with today's 7 stories. Number 1. The US and Iran agreed to a deal to end months of fighting. Yesterday, President Donald Trump said he had agreed to end the US naval blockade on Iranian ports. In exchange, he said Iran would reopen the Strait of Hormuz this week and extend an existing ceasefire. Trump celebrated the agreement yesterday, but it appears to leave major areas of disagreement unresolved and subject to further negotiations. The deal leaves Iran's leadership intact and the fate of its nuclear program unresolved. That's a far cry from Trump's initial war objectives. Despite the limits of the deal so far, the administration has been talking it up. Here is Vice President J.D. Vance speaking on Fox News.
And what the president has really set us to do is to certainly eliminate the nuclear threat of Iran. That's done. But now possibly to build to a new era of Middle East prosperity and success where it's not a region of the world where the United States has to worry about so much.
The two sides are scheduled to sign the agreement on Friday. President Trump hosted a UFC event at the White House last night to celebrate his 80th birthday. That's number 2. There was an unprecedented scene at the White House yesterday. The president staged a once unfathomable Ultimate Fighting Championship show on the South Lawn. Trump wore a UFC lapel pin below his standard American flag as he and UFC CEO Dana White walked out of the Oval Office. They emerged on a balcony as a band played Hail to the Chief. Trump sat in the front row between White and First Lady Melania Trump to watch the fights. The use of White House grounds for a violent sporting event sponsored by light beer and cryptocurrencies was overwhelmingly unpopular. It garnered the support of just 31% of Republicans and 11% of independents in a Reuters Ipsos poll. But those in attendance were fired up. Here's a fan who was interviewed by NBC4 Washington.
Trump's birthday, it's a UFC card at the White House. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and means the world to be here, especially with such an amazing dad like my dad.
The UFC fight kicked off this summer's celebrations of the nation's 250th anniversary, which have become politicized by Trump's central role. Number 3. President Trump's allies are beginning to sweat over higher oil and energy prices. Months of price increases have made it more challenging for the administration to talk about the tax breaks, refunds, and deregulation that would otherwise underpin their economic case to voters. That is making Trump supporters and Republicans anxious ahead of the midterm elections this November. Republicans are hoping to keep control of both the House and Senate in an election year that already poses challenges for incumbents. The Iran war has made that even harder. Inflation passed 4% in May for the first time in 3 years, according to data released by the Labour Department last week. That was driven by the roughly 50% boost in oil prices as the Iran war disrupts the flow of shipments. Number 4. A skydiving crash in Missouri killed 12 people. Yesterday morning, just before 11:30 a.m., the aircraft took off. It failed to gain altitude, taking a sudden turn and striking the ground at a steep angle, officials said. It crashed near Butler Memorial Airport. 11 passengers who were planning to spend the afternoon skydiving and the pilot died. Family members on the ground witnessed the tragedy. Kansas Skydive called the incident a devastating loss and said the entire team was in shock. United States Congressman Mark Alford spoke to reporters yesterday afternoon.
That's part of the role of the federal government through the FAA and the National Transportation Safety Board to do an accurate assessment and accurate investigation. And if there are any flaws in what happened that was, whether it's human or mechanical, we need to find that out.
The National Transportation Safety Board said a preliminary report will be complete in 30 days. Researchers are linking ADHD to other conditions. That's number 5. It's estimated that 15.5 million adults and roughly 7 million children in the US are affected by ADHD. Researchers are still learning about it, and a growing body of evidence suggests people with ADHD may be at risk for other conditions. Those include anxiety, disordered eating, autoimmune disease, migraines, long COVID, and chronic pelvic pain. For example, one study found that adults with extremely severe pain were more likely to have ADHD symptoms too. The risk for these other conditions may be down to a direct biological link, ADHD medication side effects, or the impacts of stress which can be associated with the condition. Number 6. A doctor explained how to avoid age-related muscle loss. Losing muscle can lead to all sorts of problems, including worse metabolic health, more vulnerability when we're ill, and a higher risk of falls. Normally, we begin to lose muscle in our 40s, but the good news is there are things we can do to combat it. That's because our muscles are very responsive to weightlifting, even as we age. To keep our muscles healthy, Jordan D. Metzi, a sports medicine doctor, says that weekly resistance training is a must. It's also important to increase our protein intake as we age, because older muscles are less sensitive to protein. Most adults should be eating at least 25 to 35 grams of protein with every meal. And because muscle is built after training, not during it, recovery is also essential. To find out more about retaining muscle as you age, click the link to our newsletter. You can find that, as always, in our show notes. And at number 7. Science suggests cringeworthy dad jokes may serve a real purpose. At some point, you've probably been bamboozled by a good or terrible dad joke, those silly one-liners known for their groan-worthy humour. We turned to you, the Washington Post readers, and asked you for the dad jokes that you find funny. Here are just a few responses that had us simultaneously rolling our eyes and slapping our knees. Why does the Danish military put barcodes on its ships? So they can Scandinavian. I was wondering why the frisbee kept getting bigger and bigger. Then it hit me. And I'm worried about the calendar. Its days are numbered. Before you hit the unsubscribe button, there may actually be more to these terrible jokes than you think. Research suggests that humour may play a meaningful role in parenting, and shared laughter may help strengthen father-child bonds. So next time your dad drops a "Hi hungry, I'm dad," let him know that you appreciate his efforts. And if you have a favourite dad joke, let us know it in the comments. All right, you're all caught up. You can find even more dad jokes and all the stories we couldn't fit in the podcast today if you head over to our newsletter. Find the link to that in our show notes, or by Googling the 7 morning briefing from the Washington Post. I'm Izin Akabawu. We'll meet you back here tomorrow.